Welcome back to Bull Sessions here on 680 KFEQ. Here's your hosts, Randy Baker and agronomist Brad Law.
Okay, Brad, we're back again. You was holding your thoughts on the tall water hemp, right? We're still going to talk about Marestail, but we need to spend a little bit more time on this water hemp, probably.
Water hemp is just a big thorn in my side.
Yeah.
And it has been, well, for everybody.
It is everyone.
And it's awful hard for me to hold my thoughts. It deals with that patience deal again. So we talked kind of a bit about the same thing, how we did the same thing for several years. And I was looking around. Have you seen the definition of insanity?
Well, no. I think I'm looking at it at the moment, this 6'3" frame that you possess, but go ahead.
Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results.
That's insanity.
That would be insanity.
I've been guilty of that.
You've been guilty of that. Well, if we didn't kill it the first time, maybe we could put a little more on and go kill it the second time.
I've heard that before.
But it's cheap, Brandy. It's
cheap.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So we were preaching prees. I was up on the podium and I'm preaching prees. Okay. Well, we're looking at, when we preach those prees and they start to peter out, let's say 30 days in from when we spray them. We put 2,4-D in the burn down, so we had to wait, 7 to 10 days or so before we could plant.
Right.
So we've got that 30 days about gone by, about 21 days after planting, somewhere in there, give or take weather. Well, 21 days is about the ideal time to do a post-sprayer pass.
We're emerged. We're in shape.
Okay. And here's the hardest thing about that. If there's not weeds out there, we need to go ahead and keep spraying. Okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to put not just something to kill what's out there, we're going to put in another residual herbicide. There's several things in this Group 15. It's, several farmers have sprayed it, whether they know it or not, would be like Dual, Warrant would be a newer herbicide,
right.
Or Zidua. That is
Zidua is fairly new.
It's a fairly new herbicide. Both those
effective.
They're all in the same family, and what they can do is they can be sprayed post over those beans, and they do not kill weeds that are emerged. They won't take down an emerged water hemp, but they will prevent those weeds that are going to keep coming up. Because
the seedlings,
the little seedlings. So why we do that is that water hemp keeps emerging. It's a summer annual, or it's a summer. It keeps coming from, time we start planting corn. Shortly after that, it starts coming up, and I think if you buried water hemp seed right now, it would come up. And this is at the end of September. So it would. So we've got that water hemp. We want to put the residual down to keep it from coming up again, but we've got to spray it early enough that the rows are open on our soybean rows, because we want that herbicide to make contact with the soil. Because if it gets intercepted by the bean leaves, does water hemp grow on bean leaves? I haven't seen it, but somebody will probably send us a picture at bulletwillcross.net of water hemp growing on bean seeds, but to prove me wrong. But, we've got to get that down to those open rows. And then we've got another, 30 days or so for that residual to keep more flushes of water hemp from coming. And then we are going to pay our preacher for a quick row canopy. Okay, that kind of ties up the whole preaching the prees, start clean, preach the prees, and then we pay the preacher for a quick row canopy. Yeah. Because if not, and we've got late season weeds that are 3-4 foot tall, and say, well, what can I go out there and spray those with? Well, you might as well say, well, if you're going to spend $20 an acre to go out there and try to kill those, why don't you just write the check out to the preacher, because it'd be...
he'll do more good with it.
He would do more good with it. So that's kind of the...
I read a deal a while back, said 20 plants of this water hemp can reduce the soybean yield by 44%. That's in a square foot.
Well, that must be on your farm, Randy,
44%.
to get that many in a square foot. But
I would say really probably half that will, that especially a plant that can produce 1 million seeds going into your soil bank. It's mind-boggling to me.
I practiced some patience this spring.
Really?
Okay, it was cold early and it was dry. So instead of going out there and putting corn into cold ground.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
You come in one day and sit down and told me to pray for you that you don't go plant corn.
And
I remember that.
I went out, so I did recreational tillage. Do you like that? Recreational tillage, because
that don't cost nothing, does it?
but it was peaceful for me. I went out and I worked some ground with a field cultivator and smoothed some stuff up.
Yeah.
And then it rained everywhere, and I hadn't sprayed nothing. And then you would not believe, by the time it rained for several weeks, when I went back out there to hit it one more time to get it ready to plant beans in that ground,
2-inch water hemp.
there was little bitty water hemp and little bitty grass solid. So
everywhere.
I mean, if you get 20, you could have 20 of those plants, and we worked the ground, we put the pre down, we drilled the beans, and we come back post, and things were good. But here's what happened when I was doing that. You know how you ever have equipment break down, Randy?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that comes with the territory.
Well, that spray coop, we've been driving it. This is my 16th season with it, and it was used when we got it. So it's nothing new, nothing fancy. And I pray that it works when I go to use it. But we went out, and I was spraying. I was getting along good. And then I was going down the road, and she just quit pulling.
Yeah.
And there's this little thing, it's a 5-speed, and there's this little thing called a clutch. Well, apparently after, we've never put a clutch in it, and those are notorious for clutches going out. So after 16 years and plus whatever prior, that clutch went out. Well, and then that's over a weekend, and then there's a holiday or something in there every time. So then they said, well, we could next day air this and it'd be this much, or if you can wait one more day, it's like $100 cheaper. So I thought, well, it's only one day. And then, it's...
Timing's everything. Adam.
Timing is. Well, then we had to wait, and we finally got it going, and we got the mechanic around. It was a few more days, and then a week or so had passed. Then it was windy. Then we thought, well, we're going to fill that sprayer, and I'm going to go spray. So I fill the sprayer, and I about got it full, and water comes flying out from underneath it.
Okay, we got something else wrong.
Yes, we've got more
when you
issues.
need it the most.
So, and it was one of those deals right before the weekend, and the spray pump that had been on since 2012 that we mentioned earlier, that wonderful drought year, finally bit the dust and decided it was going to go out and spray water everywhere. So we got to shut her down and take that off, and we got to order a new spray pump in. And so then it was even later before I got to go to the field and finish spraying.
But your weeds didn't stop while you did they?
Well, they didn't get that memo that it was good. I needed them to hold on. They just kept on growing. So the fields I sprayed early are clean versus the fields that are later, and I did the farmer thing. I put a little more Roundup in there, and we went out there and we sprayed and we killed some stuff, and then the resistant stuff we didn't kill. But that's the hand I was dealt, and I can show the difference between those. And not that I had a mistake, but it's okay. What did I learn from that?
Sure.
What can we take away? Because everybody, if you have a disaster, it's not a failure unless you refuse to learn from it and correct it. So, and try to prevent it. We can't always prevent it from happening again, but if we can look at these things and say, okay, this is where I went wrong. When I first started, the reason I studied all this chemical, it wasn't because I was sitting in some class somewhere and say, oh, I'm going to learn about chemical. It was because I was writing the check out, and I was sick of those weeds, running them in on the combine, because that's not fun. You can't drive fast combining, Randy. If you got the need for speed.
Did we talk about that last week?
We did.
Oh,
but,
okay.
When we
forgot.
When we want to run that 5 mile an hour better cutting beans, you've got to have clean beans.
Got to have clean beans.
If you're in a hurry and you're a nervous person, you want clean beans so you can put her to going. So that's the clean fields. That was the motivation. So what I did, the University of Missouri's got a real wonderful guide. It's called Mo Guide 171.
Yes, I've seen it.
It's just on this little spiral paper, and in a nice book. I think it costs $25 or $30. And you can Google Mo Guide 171, and you can get that from their online store. There's a little link in the top left that it's got a free PDF. Well, PDF for those non-technological people, it's just a file.
Why are you looking at me like that when you say that?
Well, it's difficult.
Sure.
You've got an iPhone, but you can answer it and you can somewhat text if you've got patience. But on that, I can pull up and see in that. I can pull that PDF up, and it's that whole book online. Well,
Right.
if you're sitting in, if you're driving by the field and you're like, well, how do I kill this? I want to go in and say, well, they've got these charts in there that says, okay, all these weeds up at the top and all these herbicides down on the other side. And they got it broke up between corn herbicides and bean herbicides and pre-herbicides and post-herbicides.
They give you ounces and measurements and all that, or it's just...
No, it's more of this chart is more for like you can ID, let's say if you've got cockaburs, you can say, man, we had a lot of cockaburs come through this year. And, what pre can I put down to get cockaburs? Well, you can look through and say, well, that's that herbicide that the guy was talking about at the co-op or wherever you get your chemical at. He had that listed there. Okay, that's a 9. Okay, on a scale of 10, that one's a 9. Or, oh, this guy told me to use this one. Well, it's great on this weed, but it's not good on the cockabur. It's only a 5. So you can use that, and that's Mo Guide 171 from the University of Missouri.
Okay. Well, again, I got to have you hold your thoughts if that is possible.
That's very difficult.
It's difficult, I know. When we come back, we'll touch more on maybe the Marestail and maybe some more water hemp. Brad's got a lot of thoughts on water hemp. You're listening to Bull Sessions on 680 KFEQ.